Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I'm talking to CEO of PureGold Mining, Darin Labrenz. Thanks for joining us today, Darin.
Thanks, Deborah. Appreciate it.
So I just wanted to get a little bit of background on yourself as well as the company. We met, I believe it was about 4 years ago when I was working on the desk at Beacon Securities. I marketed PureGold in Toronto, I think it was. But you've developed the project significantly since then. So congratulations, you built a lot of shareholder value over that time. But I think just starting at the beginning, a little bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a geologist by profession. I spent a good part of my career with a senior producer called Placer Dome, starting initially in exploration, but ultimately transitioning into mine geology. And my career at Placer gave me an opportunity to really experience all facets of the mining business, from exploration through development, construction, evaluations, and operations. And I think it really placed me well for the phase that we're in right now with PureGold.
So when we talked last week, we talked a lot about your history in the Red Lake area where PureGold has its main asset. Can you give me a little bit of background on your history in Red Lake and why that's relevant?
Yeah, so, again, with Placer Dome, I worked for a period of my career at the Campbell Mine, which is part of the Red Lake Mine complex in Red Lake, Ontario. And it was a great experience getting a pretty solid understanding of, the geology of the area, and importantly, the potential of the area. You look at Placer Dome at that time, they had more than a dozen operations worldwide, but the Campbell Mine was really a star performer. And it was grade that drove that. Consistently, if Placer was looking to bolster the revenue or bolster the production profile, they make a call to the Campbell Mine. And so I think that really gave me a very strong sense of what grade does for operations, what it does for margins, and really was a driver in terms of us desiring to have a closer look at the camp and see what kind of opportunities are available.
And you're not the only member of the management and board that has significant experience in the Red Lake area.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think when you look at success in a company, there's really two things you want to look at. One is getting the location right. Has it got the right geology, the right scale potential, growth potential? Do you have access to infrastructure? But equally important is the people. And so, besides myself, you look at our team, Phil Smerchansky, our VPX, consultant at Goldcorp, part of their high-grade discovery generative team. Chris Lee's a structural geologist by background. He's got, fantastic experience in the camp. And then more broadly in our board, Mark Godet spent a lot of time in the Red Lake camp. Rob Peace was general manager exploration for Placer Dome, responsible for the area. Maurice, technical services for Goldcorp, again, responsible for the technical services of the Red Lake Mine operation. So very deep roots, within the team and board in the Red Lake area. And I think that's a real driver towards our success.
So why Red Lake? What's so special about that area?
Yeah, well, it's got the right, the right mix of ingredients. Geologically, the Bomber assemblage, which hosts, up to 30 million ounces of production to date, it's got the right chemistry. There's major structures that cut through our ground that are conduits, or the plumbing system, if you will, for large scale deposits. And it's the type of deposit that generates both grade and size potential. You look at the camp, again, 30 million ounces. We've got an asset that produced continuously for 36 years, 2.5 million ounces of historical production. Today, we've got 2.1 million ounces indicated, 500,000 ounces of inferred. So we're already talking about something that's pushing 5 million ounces in terms of the scale. And we're barely scratching the surface here.
And this was a past producing asset, as you mentioned. What drew you to it? What made you think that there was potential to scale it, to put the mine back into production?
Yeah, again, I think it ties back to my experience at the Red Lake Mine complex, the Campbell Mine. Geologically, our project, the PureGold project, is identical in every respect. It's the same rocks. It's got the same structure that controls mineralization. Really, we see it as having all kinds of potential to grow. And really, I think we've established that over the last several years with the the discoveries we've made and the growth that we've generated. And again, I think we've got a long way to go here.
Would you be willing to quantify some of that potential that you think exists there? I know we've talked in the past about the different phases and like phase 1, phase 2. Where do you think that the asset can grow to, and what's the plan with it?
Yeah, it's very much a scalable operation. We took the opportunity a few years back to pursue a phased development approach. Our first phase that we're delivering on now will deliver first ore production to the mill by Christmas of this year. So we're very near term. And it was very much a cognizant opportunity to translate the existing infrastructure into near-term cash flow to help us fund ongoing exploration and delivering on phase 2. We've already drilled off, significant resource outside of that phase 1 footprint, near-surface discoveries that span 7-kilometer mineral system. And you look across that 7-kilometer mineral system, and it's very much open in every respect. Our reserves right now sit down to a depth of 1 kilometer, but we've intersected to over 2 kilometers. And that's pretty typical of this style of deposit worldwide. They are very much deep-rooted systems. And so, we feel very strongly in that scalable approach and the potential for this asset to grow.
So when you talk about the mine complex as like one of the new mining districts in Canada, maybe you can expand on that, compare it to some of the other mining districts that are talked about frequently right now.
Yeah, this is, geologically, it's a style of deposit that has attributes that are, pretty common around the world, and that is long strike lengths, very deep-rooted, multi-generational, and we see all of that potential here within, the PureGold Red Lake Mine. And again, that's something that we're really enabling through this scalable phase development approach. But, you look within Canada and things like Kirkland Lake Gold's Macassa deposit is very similar and has shown the kind of transformational growth that we think is apparent on our ground. Valuation-wise, there's all kinds of room for us to grow here. Integra 1, if you will, the Lamaque deposit was acquired for over $600 million and had a resource that's smaller than ours today. You look at Richemont's Island Gold transacted with Alamos for $1 billion. That was a sub 100,000 ounce producer that showed strong potential to depth. And today, even when you look at Wesdome, $1.5 billion valuation, it's a 100,000 ounce per year producer that's having good success drilling deeper down on another deposit that stylistically is very similar to our own. So it's a pattern that repeats itself time and time again, and certainly an opportunity that we see in front of us.
So why do you think it is that PureGold is undervalued right now?
Yeah, I think, you can point to all kinds of different reasons, one being the stage that we're at right now. I think there's not a real strong recognition of the scalable nature of our project and this phase development approach that I keep talking about. You can look at the numbers today, and with, the current market dynamics, we're seeing very much an increasing gold price, a declining Canadian dollar, such that, our gold price in Canadian dollar terms today is $700 an ounce higher than we put the feasibility study out a year ago. And that's going to deliver really strong cash flow that on the first phase of mining alone should see us re-rate significantly from where we are today. But I would like, listeners to appreciate that that's only part of the picture. And again, we've made discoveries outside the footprint of the existing first phase of mining that we continue to drill, that we've already started scoping work on, and we see that as the next layer that we'll put on top of the project to, but potentially bolster the production profile moving forward and have an impact on cash flow. And then furthermore, with the scale of the system we see in place here, we really see this as just the beginning of something that could last for decades.
There's a couple things in there that I want to touch on. First, you talk about the feasibility study and the resource, but we actually haven't expanded on what those economics and what the actual resource is. If you don't mind telling the audience a little bit about the project economics.
Yeah, absolutely. So we carved out a million ounce reserve out of a resource that's 2.1 million ounces of indicated, and another 500,000 ounces of inferred. So I took a portion of the resource. We went through all the detailed engineering work to develop a reserve, and that's what we're executing on today. At our base case economics at $1,275 US per ounce, or 1,700 Canadian dollars per ounce. we showed strong net present value and cash flow in a very low capital operation, which is fully funded today for production. But again, we've seen the markets really move over the last year, such that improving gold price environment, declining Canadian dollar has translated into something that, today would generate about $1.2 billion in pre-tax cash flow. And so, again, from just the first phase numbers alone are strong enough to justify a real strong re-rating in our share price. But then you look outside of that to the broader 2.1 million ounce indicated and 500,000 ounce inferred resource, we see real room for growth here beyond those base case economics.
Okay, and when you talk about Red Lake, you own the Southern Mine Trend, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple different things that define Red Lake geology and the 30 million ounces of gold that has come out of the camp. And really, it's being in the right rocks. So these, I've talked to Barnum Sandwich, is green rocks. You want to be in that package of rocks. It's delivered all the production that we know of to date. And you want to be close to one of these big structures that divides the camp. And so when you look at that, there's really two areas. There's one to the north of us that hosts the Red Lake Mine Complex, now owned by Evolution. And there's one that spans our property. We hold 10 kilometers of it, and it hosts all of the production known on the property to date, and hosts the current resource that we have today.
How deep are they mining at Evolution right now?
Yeah, so that asset is currently being mined to a depth of just over 2.5 kilometers. So it's quite deep. And, when you step back to what I said earlier, very similar in really every aspect between the Red Lake Mine Complex and our own. And really the fundamental difference between the two trends, if you will, is that we're about 30 years behind. And so they've seen another 30 years of mining on the Red Lake Mine Complex. They're deeper. And we're still looking at that first kilometer with room to expand beyond that.
When we spoke earlier, that really helped me understand what you meant by the phased approach. I mean, everyone jokes around about open at depth, but you truly are really open at depth. And if your structures are the same that they see to the north, like there's definitely a phase potential below. So thank you for explaining that in more detail. You touched on a little bit about the Canadian currency being a factor here. I think just really hitting on the jurisdiction is important. There's not a lot of high quality, high grade, safe jurisdiction gold projects out there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this really is a tier one asset in a tier one jurisdiction. And a lot of people will say that, but being in Canada, you have a real certain regulatory environment. So you have certainty about the path forward, how to permit a mine, how to operate, what the rules are. And you're certain that those rules aren't going to evolve or change over time. So, certainly in that regulatory environment, certainty in ownership, obviously personal security is not an issue. And you take that a step further. We've got a real strong pool of experienced miners in Canada, which allows you to efficiently mine and move a project forward. So, it's a fantastic place to explore. It's a fantastic place to build a mine, and it's a great place to operate. So we're really excited about the location and where we're operating.
And I know people are going to want to know how has COVID affected your project? Has it caused any delays? Do you have any cases in the area?
Yeah, it's certainly it's an ongoing fluid situation that we've been monitoring very closely and have been for some time. We put in a whole series of policies and procedures to manage our operations at site, and thus far we're managing effectively. Mining has been designated an essential service in Ontario, and that's allowed us to continue to develop our operation. And frankly, when you think about it, stepping back to some of the market dynamics, there really is no more important time to be building a mine in Canada, a gold mine. It's one of the key areas that will help kickstart the economy as we come in the other side of this, and it's a store of value that'll underpin the economic certainty of the country as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely a great jurisdiction. You're in the right commodity. Talk to me a little bit about, so right now you're in construction, you plan to be in commercial production at year end, and the current situation hasn't affected that timeline. How are you paying for this? Is it fully funded? What's your capital requirement on the project?
Yeah, this is a very low capital operation or construction project, if you will, given that we're able to leverage significant existing infrastructure on the site. So, we are fully funded to production today. And, as of our last disclosure, about 65 million Canadian in cash. We've got an undrawn debt facility of 55 million US. When you put those together, it translates into cash or cash available of about 140 million. Remaining capital expenditure on the project is 97 million. And so you can see there's a good strong buffer there as we move into first production at the tail end of this year.
And will you be spending some of that buffer on drilling?
Yeah, we're certainly looking at drilling here. We had, right now we're monitoring COVID very closely, and we are planning to re-engage on the drilling side. Right now we're planning towards the end of this month for drills to start operating again underground, looking to expand mineralization in the vicinity of the first mining that'll come on stream.
Okay. And then you talked about management a little bit at the beginning as it relates to experience in Red Lake, but I think part of what really interests me about PureGold is there's a track record of building mines and having them purchased. Do you want to talk a little bit about that track record that the management team has?
Yeah, when you look more broadly at the group, if you include the PureGold mine, which will come on stream towards the end of this year, we brought 3 mines into production over the last 4 years. That includes Long Canyon, developed by Newmont in Nevada, includes True Gold's Karma project in Burkina Faso, and now the PureGold mine in Red Lake, Ontario. So there's a strong track record here of developing assets, bringing them into production, and as you say, transacting. And so, that breadth of experience across the board and management team really does go a long way towards being successful within the company.
Great. So what I'm hearing is you've got a favorable macro situation favoring gold, as well as having a Canadian asset. The currency exchange really helps in this environment. You've got a tier 1 asset in a tier 1 jurisdiction. You've got scalability. If you look at the base case feasibility study, that's really just phase 1 that you're talking about. So as you go deeper, there's going to be upside on your life of mine production. And then fully funded to scale, undervalued, underfollowed, commercial production at year end. So near-term cash flow and strong management team and track record. What am I missing?
You got it. Absolutely. It's, we're perfectly timed bringing our project into the market to the tail end of this year, and being a, scalable asset, it's very much just the beginning. So we're really excited about what the future will bring and being the future of Red Lake. Yeah,
well, congratulations. I mean, in the 4 years that I think we've known each other, you've taken what was a fairly new company with a past producing asset. You've developed it, you've shown its viability, and now you're 7-8 months away from commercial production. That's incredible. So congrats. And I look forward to having you and the other members of the management team present at a webinar that we're hosting on the 19th. So it should be a lot of fun.
Thanks, Deborah. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.